IKIMfm, inspirasi utama anda. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to our dear listeners of IKIMfm. Welcome to a brand new episode of Great Works of the Muslim World. I'm your host Batrisha Afrina. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for listening to us from wherever you are. Either you are listening to this through radio, through our application, or even through our social media pages, Facebook and YouTube. And of course, as we know, in Great Works in the Muslim world, we explore about the rich intellectual and spiritual legacy of Islamic scholarship. So what will be for this week's episode? So without further ado, I would like to first introduce, of course, the man of the show himself, Dr. Mama Usni, Mama Amin, fellow at IKIM Center for Science and Environment Studies, KIAS. Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Batrisha.
Alhamdulillah, how are you, Doctor?
Good. Alhamdulillah, I'm well. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you again too, Doctor. Right. MashaAllah. So, Doctor, for this week's episode, right?
Yes.
The topic is Imām Ibn ʿAṭāษ์Al-Iskandarī'S Book of Wisdoms. And I still remember in the previous season, we did talk about his work on, especially on, if I'm not mistaken, Tajul Arus, the introduction of Tasawwuf. So, in this week's episode, we look at his another book. So, I would say as a starting for today's conversation, can you share with us what this book is all about?
Yes. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. So in last season we spoke about his book Tajul Arus, the bridegroom's crown. Well, it's not exactly a book about marriage or the propaganda of marriage, but it's a book about his introduction to the finer aspect of the religion of Islam, which we call tasawwuf.
Tasawwuf.
Yes, that is from tasawwufa, that is to cleanse oneself, to spiritually purify. So Imām Ibn ʿAṭāษ์ is the author. And today we're going to talk about another book of his, which goes concurrently with his other book, Kitāb Tanwir fi Isqāt Tadbir, which is that is another advanced book. If Tajul Arus is quite the beginner kind of book. This book, Kitāb Tanwir, and this book, which we will discuss, Kitāb al-Ḥikam, is another quite intermediary to advanced level. But I wouldn't say it's too advanced because, as we will talk about later, it's quite accessible to people, but not to say that it's too accessible for lay persons. Remember, you have to go to Tajul Arus first.
Yes.
You have to know what tasawwuf is all about first.
To have that basic understanding.
Yes, and then when you traverse the path, then this book, Kitāb al-Ḥikam, is meant to help those who are traveling the path.
So does it mean that the previous book, the Tajul Arus, and also this book, Kitāb al-Hikam, is like complementing each other?
Yes, I would say so. Once you have been introduced, I think it's not much of a manual. Tajul Arus is more of a manual. How to begin, what is it for somebody to traverse the path of tasawwuf. But Kitāb al-Ḥikam is when you have started your traveling along the spiritual path, and you begin to encounter adversities. And to assuage your feeling of you're gonna feel the hardship associated with travel. Of course, when we travel, even to places, we are bound to encounter some problems, some adversities.
Exactly.
There's no easy P. Especially when you travel long haul, you travel thousands of miles away from your home. So this is talking about traveling to the higher plane of existence, to the higher states of being.
MashaAllah.
Right? So, but we'll come back to that. But as an introduction, Al-Iskandari is a prominent Sufi master of the Shazili tariqah, and we said last time that it's not actually necessary to join any tariqah. The only tariqah that is sufficient for the Muslim is the tariqah Rasulullah, the path that has been laid by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But people join order is any Sufi order, also some Sufi sheikh says, it's because you want to be with people who are going to help you traverse the path. Imagine you are a lone traveler, or you travel with, say, a travel group. You are heading towards the same destination. Which one is easier? Some people will say that it's easier to travel alone. It's up to them. But if you travel but with the same people, with same set of mind, same destination, same targets that you want to achieve, you know, we wouldn't say that it's the more the merrier, but it helps to have some company of like-minded individuals, right? People who will remind you that it's time to pray. People who will remind you, hey, it's time to fast. And when you hear the whispers from the lower self, which we all have, it helps to have somebody check up on you and you know, stop you from even thinking about that.
To remind us constantly.
That is the value of suhbah, companionship. Okay. And never mind if you are traveling alone, because you are still in the jama'ah of Muslims. You are still among Muslims. That in a way helps too. But it is because God created us in variety, in different levels. We are, not all of us are meant to be scholars. Not all of us are meant to be merchants. Not all of us meant to be professors. And not all of us meant to be people who, you know, sweep the road. Each according to the disposition, the tabi'ah, and also the natural predisposition that God created us for. Okay. So this Imam Al-Iskandari, he was a scholar of both Islamic jurisprudence and also a spiritual guide. I think in one of the introduction to his book, I think there's another. This is the book Kitāb al-Ḥikam, the book of wisdom. This is translated by Victor Danner, but it's nice because it's got a commentary by Sheikh Abdullah Gangohi. And then so this particular edition, I remember there's a much slimmer version that I read when I was young. It says that Ibn ʿAṭāÐ Allāh was the contemporary of the Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, who was known for many of his controversial views. But they met and they interacted, and Ibn Taymiyyah, he considered that Ibn ʿAṭāÐ Allāh was a person who is upright, and he is not of the deviated ones. People who, well, we say that those who follow tasawwuf must be built upon the sound sharia. That is the prerequisite to tasawwuf. So this book pertaining to tasawwuf is a cornerstone of tasawwuf. And it offers profound aphorisms. Aphorisms, these are wise words that guide the soul towards divine closeness. So this book, because when we talk about traveling, and of course we are, like I said, we are going to meet with adversities. We're going to meet with problems. So some people, they have been introduced to tasawwuf, but theory is only theory unless you practice it.
So it's different, right?
Yeah, it's a different thing. Although in Islam, it should be as one, because when you know something, that is also your amal. There's a virtue of knowing things, and God elevate the stations of people who are learned.
I think like you mentioned in the previous episode, means that if it is proven in theory, then it means that it can be proven practically.
Yes. So that's right, because in one of the earlier books of one of the later books of Imam Al-Ghazali, he writes Kitāb Ayyuhal Walad, he stresses about the importance of action with knowledge. There is no use if you have knowledge but you do not act, or there is no use in acting without knowledge. He says al-ilm bila amal junun, wal amal bila ilm lam yakun, he says. So he says having knowledge without action is madness, but acting without knowledge becomes nothing. And he goes on to say that he gives the what do you call the metaphor that if you measure 2,000 rattles of wine, unless you drink it, you will not be thrilled. So that is off the cuff translation of it, but it says a lot about putting theories into action. So Kitāb al-Ḥikam, when you travel, you will meet with adversities, and some people they will start to doubt because they think that it's going to be an easy path. That with enlightened spirituality, all things will become easy. That's the mistaken notion, because this path requires us to renounce worldliness. This path requires us to face hardship, knowing that it is all within God's divine plan. These are actually opportunities to become better, but you have to do it. You have to work. You have to do the work.
So it's not easy as easy as a slide.
Yeah.
So it has to, of course, need some hard work from us.
Yes.
Before we can, really put our reliance on Allah, that you make it easy.
Yeah.
But then to have the expectation, that it is something that we have to work for.
Exactly. Because how can you call yourself as a hard worker if you don't do the hard work? And then Imam Ghazali says, a thief is not called a thief simply because he calls himself a thief. He is a thief because he stole something. He takes people wrongfully from others, right? So by the same token, a person is not a Sufi. He doesn't do the tasawwuf, the purification of the soul, and that is fasting, through regular prayer, to supplication, through helping others, through charity work, through removing burdens from the road, from helping a blind person cross the street or the road, for example.
But then, Doctor, if you don't mind me asking, is there exactly, I would say, a defined definition of what act can be truly defined as an act of acting as a self-purification, and another one is what makes it different with the just an act of kindness?
Yes.
What's the difference between those two?
That goes back to the worldview, I suppose. Well, if I think this is going into theology, because I think there's a hadith actually in the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi in A'malu bin-Niyah. So this important hadith says that your deeds are according to your intention. Say for example, you help somebody cross the road, an old person. You have the intention of helping him because of Allah Ta'ala, because Allah commands that you do good to such to people who are weak, who are frail. So therefore you will get a reward just because of that. But if a person does not, an atheist, doesn't believe in God, God is grateful that he helps the person, and God will reward him in this world. But as for the hereafter, then we leave it to God, because that is God's work actually. We don't put we don't say people are going to hell or heaven. That's none of our business really, right? So back to what we are discussing, Batusha. So this book is significant because the spiritual advice contained within is practical, and it is also able to address the quest for the human soul to find meaning and connection with the divine. So this explains that why is it that in some conflict zones that people who are faithful, who are believers, they are not easily shaken by death, by the adversity that they are faced, because they have strong beliefs that God, all endings belong to God. He is the one who determines all things.
Yes.
وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. The Quran says that all consequences, it's up to God to decide, and He will then decide for each of us where our deeds belong. Right? So this wisdom of the book remains timeless. It provides guidance, but unlike books of theology, Kitāb al-Ḥikam, it speaks to the heart. So everybody should be able to benefit from. You don't have to be a theologian to benefit from this book. You just have to have the introduction and try to understand it. It will be applicable. So I think this is why some people, when they read, they are not Sufis. They just happen to find this book in the bookstore, and they pick it up, and then they'll find something. And then they put it up as Instagram postings, and things which soothe the heart. They find things which are beneficial in this book. That's how accessible this book is, because the teaching cuts through the life's complexities, and it becomes a valuable resource for anyone in the spiritual path, and it remains influential in Sufi circles and outside of it.
MashaAllah. And but then I still remember in the introduction of the interview just now, you talked that if you compare it to Tajul Arus, it is much more advanced a bit than that, and it requires at least an intermediate or advanced level, especially in the Sufi knowledge. So perhaps does it mean it because of the content of the book or because of the structure of this book? So going further into that, can you explain to us about the structure of this book, and how does Imam Ibn ʿAṭāษ์present his reflections throughout this kitab?
Yes. So like I said, Dr. Shab, this book, because it's so accessible that anybody can, pick it up from a bookstore and start taking benefits from it. But make no mistakes, because these are not actually motivational quotes. Because some people, they mistake it. These are wise words. You can take benefit from it. But it comes with a prerequisite, because you have to learn the Sharia. You have, like I said, you have to do the hard work, understanding and living the Sharia, the 5 pillars of Islam. And then because remember this hadith about Islam, Iman and Ihsan. Islam is the 5. And then Iman is the 6. But what is Iman? Belief is assent in the heart, and then utterance of the tongue, and then wal amal bi jawarih, and acting it out. So it's not enough that you see something wrong that it's within your power to change, but you merely hate it in your heart, but you decide your mouth is closed, and then the hand does nothing. So that's not iman. Iman requires that if it's within your power to affect change for the good, then you should do it. Okay, so but people tend to mistake this book for motivational quotes, and so they do this. They feel good about it, but it doesn't call them to action. It's a call of action, but they don't do it. So they just feel warm and all fuzzy inside, but outside they are still being jerks to others, being rude, and then they still take other people's sandwich in the refrigerator in the office pantry, or they lie to people, but they feel good, warm and fuzzy. So these things actually is warned in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Kahf. I think in the last verses it talks about people who think that they are yuhsinuna sun'a, he said in that verse, people who think that they are doing something good, but actually they are not. So God straight away says, cuts all through all the illusions and goes to the core of the problem, right? So that's why we need people. If you really want to read this book, you can read it, but you have to find a teacher, a qualified teacher, who adheres to the Sharia, who's been vouchsafed by others of his character, his conduct, and then you'll be able to benefit from this book.
MashaAllah, Doctor, you actually, without you realizing, you actually just answered. I think one of the things that I could question it, because I actually, me myself, I'm a book reader, I'm a bookworm. I love to read a lot of motivational books. But then, usually when I read the book once, I finish reading the book, I feel motivated, like I want to become a better person. But then after a few days later, I feel like not motivated. Like I don't feel something that can push me to really do what the book said. And I always kept thinking to myself, maybe is it because of I didn't read enough of the book, maybe because I don't really appreciate the book. But now listening to you, I think maybe it's because that maybe I read the wrong book, or perhaps I need someone to guide me to go through the book together. And thinking about that, mashallah, and I believe that I'm not the only one who go through it. I believe many of our listeners out there who do feel the same. And going further into that, is there any possibility, perhaps, because you said that the book is not a motivational book, right? But it does makes you feel warm. So for you to really appreciate and truly act throughout what the book said, you need to have some basic knowledge on the Sharia and also someone to guide you. Is there any possibility that people might get out of the context, might take some of the words out of context than what is supposed to be?
Yes, it does. Well, this is the problem. Well, to answer this, we have to go a little bit about theology, because, the Royal Professor Said Muhammad Naqib Al-Aqtas says that actually true Sunnis, they don't subscribe to this understanding that we call the transcendent unity of religions, because it presupposes that all religions come from one source, which is God. But rather, Islam has its claim to truth. And even on transcendental level, what they call, they separate it as esoteric and exoteric. Exoteric is what you see. They say that the differences happen at exoteric level. That's why you see Hindus, they say Muslim, you see Christians. These are differences at the exoteric level. But the people who follow transcendental unity of religion, they say that the paths are different, but on the esoteric level, it leads to one source, which is God. But even then, we have to disagree, because even at that level, we differ. Because at that level, it's where Iblis, the devil, he misguides people with his disobedience against God, and he promised to set people astray. But with respect to the other religions, this is where we set clear the lines. It doesn't mean that we cannot respect them in this world. We have to respect them. In fact, Islam says do not mock what they worship, and do nicely to people. Even if our parents are non-Muslims, we are Muslims, that we still have to respect them. We have to give them their due as our parents. But on the esoteric level, this is where mistakes can happen. Like what you experience when reading this motivational quotes. There's no harm in reading them. If you find wisdom in them, then by all means take it. But how do you differentiate between what's wisdom and what's not? That requires you to have a comprehensive understanding of the Sharia. That's where you can differentiate. And plus, furthermore, I think the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that al-Hikmah dalatul mu'min, fa aynama wajadaha fahuwa ahaqqu biha. He said that wisdom, Hikam is the plural of hikmah. So hikmah is the lost property of the believer. Wherever he finds it, then he has the most right to it, and he can take. Because hikmah ultimately comes from Allah Ta'ala. In our understanding, God has been sending prophets throughout in the ages, 100 years until Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every 100 years or every 500 years, there has not been a time when people, the majority of the time, people have had prophets guiding them. Except for the last before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the time when we say in between prophets are being sent to people. So these people, some of them, they are called hunafa. I mean, they are not faulted. I mean, God will ask them in the hereafter. God will ask them and He will decide. But it means that these wisdoms, because God sent the prophets and God gave them books, scriptures and wisdoms. These wisdoms are spread, they talk, and then it's spread around. So people take benefits from it. And some of these are preserved, some of them are not. Like Luqman al-Hakim, for example. He's a non-prophet, but his wisdom is recorded in the Holy Quran. Right? So so I think I hope that answers that for time being, but we cannot belabor too much on that. We're here to talk about Kitāb al-Ḥikam. So this structure, this book is structured in collection of aphorisms, and they are each focused on fundamental aspects of life. And the many themes here we can see reliance on God, tawakkul, repentance, tawbah, sincerity, ikhlas, sabar, patience, gratitude, shukr, and love, hub. So this the book does not follow a linear narrative. Means unlike Tajul Arus, you don't have to read it from cover to cover. You can just open, okay, you find something, you can learn from it. So, but the style is poetic and reflective, and it is designed to provoke deep contemplation.
MashaAllah.
So, and then, well, it allows, because the format is not as academic as some, Tajul Arus, you can say that it's semi-academic, because it's for somebody who is serious to learn about what the path is. But this book, it allows the readers to engage it with their own pace. It offers both intellectual and emotional depth. What kind of depth? So we say that people, when they travel and then they feel hardship, why I pray 5 times a day, I do salawat 1,000 times every night, I give charity, but still my life is hard. But it calls you to reflect that if the hardship is part of that path, okay, and then without God even allowing you to do these things, had it not for God that you weren't able to do these things, to pray on time, to fast in full, and we're not about not eating or not drinking, but also taking care of our eyesight and not seeing the bad things, guarding our tongue from speaking horrible things about other people and that sort of things. And I like one particular hikmah that I enjoy from this is that when you raise your hands in supplication to God, know that He wants you to give you something. And it's because He has a divine plan. His plan is grand. And because we say Allahu Akbar, meaning not that Allah is too big, it's rather we are too small to understand the wisdom in His plan. That we ask Him something, but He gives us something which is better, but we cannot see that wisdom. But it is assuredly it is better for us. If we don't get a new job, for example, we plan to get ice cream today, but no shop unfortunately opens for the day that sells ice cream. We may get something else,
which is much better.
Better
than ice cream.
He sees it, we don't. So this kind of thing, it sounded like a motivational quote, but it's not. But rather it soothes the heart of the believer to keep him, to make him steadfast, so that he will continue to do that good work until there come upon a time, if it's not in this world, then it will be in the next world, which is even more grandeur.
MashaAllah, Doctor. Love listening to that. Right. And going further into the conversation, I realized that you mentioned about the reliance to God, and I believe that it is very important for us, especially we are in the journey of trying to self-purify, and also trying being in the journey, as you said, a journey to the divine closeness.
Yep.
And can you share with us, as you mentioned just now, about the tawakkul, the divine reliance? What role do the teams as tawakkul, and also another one, as you mentioned, surrender, taslim, play in the spiritual teachings of this book?
Yeah. So these two themes, tawakkul and taslim, they are central in Kitāb al-Ḥikam. The emphasis that Imam Ibn ʿAṭāษ์put is that the true spiritual peace is attained by placing trust in God's will, like I said before, trust in His plan, and relinquishing control over outcome. What does it mean? Does it mean that we become like the ascetic who only waits until a bird comes by and bring us foodstuff? No, it doesn't. It means that we have to realize at all moment, at all time, it is God who is in control.
Yes.
But we are here to do work. It is only relinquishing the outcome, meaning we put it so that God determines the outcome. Nevertheless, we still have to do our work. All right. And this tawakkul involves in taking appropriate action while acknowledging that success and failure ultimately lies in God's hand. Even if we have done our preparations, we have worked so hard to achieve our targets, but we still fail, then no, that is God. It is God in action. God is the one who determines.
If it's not meant for us, we will not get it.
Correct. So and so Ibn ʿAṭāษ์says, you're striving for what has been already guaranteed to you, and your remissness, I mean your laziness in what is demanded of you, are signs of the blurring of your intellect. Meaning you don't understand it still. That shows us something, right? Which is better? Someone who comes to you and always praise you and never highlight all your weakness, or somebody who constantly or frequently says that you are lacking in this. Some people they like people to praise them all the time, but they continue to make mistakes. And I think there's one saying by Machiavelli, or he says, "Don't awake the enemy to his mistakes. Just let him do it. He will, ruin himself." Right? Some people they like to be praised, but they don't know that actually the praise comes from their enemies who like to see them fail. But compared to people who he's aware of his failings, he's always told about it, and he makes continuous improvements. Then when he dies, people say this person is excellent. He is always self-correcting. He admits his failures. He admits his weaknesses. We call it, he's situationally aware.
Yes, I've heard that.
So these teachings, they guide believers to live with patience, trust, and humility, and understanding that God's plan is far wiser than human comprehension. So this book ultimately it encourages us to submit to God fully. That is actually the meaning of Islam: submission. What we submit to is God's divine wisdom, and to rely to Him. So we don't think about a problem that is ahead of us, or it avoids us from overthinking. I suppose.
And especially in nowadays situations, right, where there are a lot of challenges, I think because of the way the modern, how it is structured, we live in a stressful environment nowadays, right? But when listening to this, to your explanation, mashallah, it gives us, I believe, some hope that, in Islam we have the answer for it, and we don't have to worry much about it. I would say, would it be okay for me to say that?
Yeah.
It's okay, because if you I know that if you want something, of course you need to work hard for it. But if it is not meant for you, if you don't get it, perhaps, and not perhaps, actually, Allah has a better plan for you, right? And we have to believe in that. MashaAllah, Doctor. So as we are reaching the end of this conversation, I would like to leave you with one last question. In what ways is Kitāb al-Ḥikam relevant for addressing modern spiritual challenges and nurturing faith into this world?
Yeah. So, like you said, Patricia, is into this fast-paced and materialistic world. I think this book offers a timeless wisdom to address the challenges of modern life. It does not make us commit to an ascetic life, the life that it renounces the world, because this world is created for us.
Yes.
It's a tool for us to get closer to the divine, to Allah Ta'ala. And as such, we don't build, on tools. We use them to build for the next life. And I think in the Quran it says walil akhiratu khairun wa abqa, and wal akhiratu khairu wa abqa, meaning the hereafter is much better and everlasting. And but these wisdoms, they emphasize a detachment from worldly distractions, and it cultivates inner peace when you don't worry so much on the outcome. I mean, of course you have to think about it and work towards it, but it relieves you from the overthinking that leads to other symptoms like anxiety, for example, from reckless behavior, or even getting angry at people. So this book, it encourages a deep reflection and connection with God, reminds people of that true spiritual growth is impossible without first fulfilling the obligations of Islam and Iman. So it serves as a guide, really, for those who strive to nurture their faith, to make them stronger people mentally, spiritually, despite the problems and the adversities that they face. And I think this is much more important with today's life that is becoming complex.
Yes.
Yeah.
MashaAllah, Doctor. Thank you very much for your sharing in today's episode. I personally learned a lot from you, from talking about the Kitāb al-Ḥikam, and then suddenly we changed the direction a little bit onto the wisdom itself, about the wisdom of life. And this book is actually relevant, can be read by the public, but then you need to have at least a little bit of understanding, as you mentioned, on the Sharia. And also, if possible, it's better if you have guidance, people to help you in understanding about, if you would like to be in this journey of being close to the divine. And thank you again, Dr. Husni, for your insight on today's sharing Imām Ibn ʿAṭāʿ Al-Iskandarī'S Book of Wisdoms. And we hope that today's sharing will be beneficial and also inspiring to those who are listening to us through radio, through the application, or even through our social media pages, Facebook and YouTube. So, dear listeners, if you have any question, would like to share your thoughts on today's conversation, you can leave the comment on the comment section of this airing on Facebook and YouTube, or you can simply leave us a WhatsApp at 011-29004004. And again, thank you, Doctor, for being with us in the studio. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
And to our listeners, be sure to tune in to us next week for more conversations. So stay tuned to IKIMfm.